a direct attack on the president's policies as well?
I'm not going to make a comment on that. I don't have any information on it. I do want to say that Sean Spicer, as always, is 100% correct, and that what he said is true and important, and I agree with it.
So then you are making a comment on it.
I'm not going to make any new comment. I'm going to stand by the White House press secretary and his comments, and I'm also going to call for sanity in discussing this issue. You had a case where somebody was treated unfairly, the president stuck up for a member of his family, and the White House counselor made a light-hearted, flippant comment that nobody would interpret as being what has been cast as right now by you and the media and others.
Member of the Federal Election Commission, Ellen Weintraub, who says, I call upon the president to immediately share New Hampshire voter fraud evidence so that his allegations may be investigated promptly. Do you have that evidence?
I've actually, having worked before on a campaign in New Hampshire, I can tell you that this issue of busing voters into New Hampshire is widely known by anyone who's worked in New Hampshire politics. It's very real. It's very serious. This morning on this show is not the venue for me to lay out all the evidence, but I can tell you this. Voter fraud is a serious problem in this country.
Hold on a second. You just claimed again that there was illegal voting in New Hampshire. People bust in from the state of Massachusetts. Do you have any evidence to back that up?
George, go to New Hampshire, talk to anybody who's worked in politics there for a long time. Everybody's aware of the problem in New Hampshire with respect to
I'm asking you as the White House senior Hold on a second. I'm asking you as the White House senior policy advisor. The president made a statement saying he was the victim of voter fraud. People being bused from Massachusetts.
The president was.
Do you have any evidence?
If this is an issue that interests you, then we could talk about it more in the future.
Absolutely no evidence. The president's made a statement.
The White House has provided enormous evidence with respect to voter fraud. We know for a fact you have massive numbers of non-citizens registered to vote in this country. Nobody disputes that. George, it is a fact, and you will not deny it, that there are massive numbers of non-citizens in this country who are registered to vote. That is a scandal. We should stop the presses, and as a country, we should be aghast about the fact that you have people who have no right to vote in this country, registered to vote, canceling out the franchise of lawful citizens of this country. That's the story we should be talking about, and I'm prepared to go on any show, anywhere, anytime, and repeat it and say the President of the United States is correct 100%.
Well, you just repeated that. You just made those declarations, but for the record, you provided zero evidence that the president was the victim of massive voter fraud in New Hampshire. You provided zero evidence.
Anyone who's worked in New Hampshire politics is familiar with that issue.
You provided zero evidence that the president's claim that he would have won the popular vote if 3 to 5 million illegal immigrants hadn't voted. Zero evidence for either one of those claims.
Well, it's
Thanks
the
a lot for
non-citizen
joining us
voting
this morning.
issue. The non-citizen voting issue is pervasive and widespread, and we are going to protect our country from voter fraud. An unelected judge does not have the right to remake the immigration laws and policies for the entire United States of America. But I want to say something very clearly, and this is going to be very disappointing to the people protesting the president and the people in Congress, like Senator Schumer, who've attacked the president for his lawful and necessary action. The president's powers here are beyond question.
Stephen, the three judges say you're flat wrong.
No, the three judges made a broad, overreaching statement about the ability to check the executive power and did not even address what I was talking about, which was INA 212F, 8 U.S.C. 1182F, the power of the president to exclude aliens in the national interest.
But they say that the courts have a long history of reviewability here.
No, the Ninth Circuit has a long history of being overturned, and the Ninth Circuit has a long history of overreaching. We don't have judicial supremacy in this country. We have three co-equal branches of government. Of course the president has the authority to impose moderate, necessary, and sensible restrictions, including putting in place new vetting procedures to protect this country. That power was delegated to him explicitly by Congress and adheres to him under his Article 2 powers under the U.S. Constitution. This is a judicial usurpation of power. It is a violation of judges' proper role in litigating disputes. We will fight it, and we will make sure that we take actions to keep from happening in the future what's happened in the past.
President Trump tweeted this. I'm going to put it on the screen. Just cannot believe a judge would put our country in such peril. If something happens, blame him and court system. People pouring in. Bad. But now, Stephen, that judge is getting death threats. So the question is, if something happens to him, should we blame President Trump?
This is one of the most ludicrous things that the media does, where when any crazy person in this country issues a death threat, that they then blame a politician or a public official. That is reckless and irresponsible and should never be done. The reality is
but some people would say that personally attacking a judge is reckless and irresponsible. In fact, your own Supreme Court nominee, Judge Gorsuch, called it disheartening and demoralizing.
Statements that you can't criticize a judge demonstrate a profound misunderstanding of what it means to have separate and equal branches. Of course, one branch can criticize another branch of government. It's ludicrous to say that Congress can criticize the president, and the president can criticize Congress, and judges can criticize the president, but the president can't criticize judges.
So Neil Gorsuch was wrong?
I have my opinions, and Judge Gorsuch has had his comments, as you know, misinterpreted and misrepresented by Senator Blumenthal, who, as we all know, has profound credibility issues.
Well, wait. On the question, first of all, on the question of his saying that he found these remarks disheartening and demoralizing, it wasn't.
That's different than saying.
Wait a minute.
That's different than saying you can't criticize a judge.
Stephen,
I don't think that Judge Gorsuch would say you can't criticize a judge in the United States.
That these comments were disheartening, demoralizing. He said it not only to Richard Blumenthal, he said it to Senator Ben Sasse as a Republican.
That is not what Kelly Ayotte put out a statement. That's not what she said he said. You weren't in the room. I wasn't in the room. What we do know is that Senator Blumenthal, we all know his Vietnam scandal. We know how much he has a credibility problem. It's a serious problem. That's what should be the focus of this conversation, is the degree to which that senator has a serious credibility issue. But not to get off track here, because we're going all over the place. Let's just be very clear and straightforward in saying the following. The United States of America has a terrorism problem.
You and Steve Bannon were reportedly the prime movers behind the rollout of this executive order before it had been fully vetted by all the key players of the administration or congressional leaders. And, of course, now it has been blocked in several courts. Do you and Bannon take responsibility for all the problems with this rollout?
First of all, people are giving way too much credit to me and Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon has no role whatsoever in drafting executive orders. Key people at departments and agencies were read into the executive order.
You would agree it hasn't gone smoothly.
Well, here's where you're wrong, Chris. And I hate to say this because I think you're fabulous. But we issued 3 executive orders on immigration that have profoundly improved the security posture of this country. In the end, the powers of the President of the United States will be reaffirmed, and the whole world will see.
The need to insult John McCain in the process.
Donald Trump will never apologize.
Do you believe there's too much legal immigration in this country?
I believe that we should have a program in which American workers are given jobs first. The president campaigned on this.
You didn't answer the question. Do you and the president believe there's too much legal immigration?
I think that I look forward to us rolling out immigration reforms, and I'll be able to announce very clearly when we do that what those do. I think that my views on this issue have been well discussed and well publicized, and I'd love to have a conversation with you to get into them in great detail. Right. Where we're focused right now is 2 things: protecting the security of our country through interior enforcement and through screening of entrants, and additionally by ensuring that before a job is given to a foreign national, that job is offered first to an American worker, either a legal permanent resident or a U.S. citizen.
Well, I'm going to ask about what appears to be an immigration enforcement surge that has taken place over the last week.
You cannot order a federal law enforcement officer in ICE any more than you can in the FBI or the DEA or the Marshal Service to ignore the laws of the United States. It would be highly unethical for me in the White House or anybody else to pick up the phone and call an ICE officer and say, well, when you encounter this particular felon, we'd like you to pretend the law doesn't exist. But I can tell you right now, there are enforcement actions happening all over this country in which gang members, drug dealers, sex offenders are being swept up.
Felons. What about if the only crime they committed was being here illegally? Is that enough to be deported?
Sean, an immigration judge makes those decisions. The ICE officer makes those decisions. I in the White House don't make those decisions.
So you're not told them to prioritize
if people don't like the immigration laws of the United States, they can reform them.
Sounds to me as if you're saying you did not tell ICE workers who to prioritize.
No, that's not correct. I'm saying that I, in the White House, it would be improper for me to tell them to disengage from an enforcement action. The president has been clear, unequivocal, and explicit, and we will not apologize
Mr. Miller,
for that.
Before I let you go, does the president still have confidence in his
That's a question that I think you should ask the president. The question you should ask Reince, the chief of staff. I'm here today as a policy advisor, and my focus is on answering the policy questions that you have. General Flynn has served his country admirably. He's a 3-star general. He's head of the Defense Intelligence Agency, and I look forward to having more discussions about this in the future.
So the White House did not give you anything to say other
They
than
did not
that
give me. They did not give
General
me
Flynn.
anything to say.
You cannot. So you cannot say whether or
Asked
not
and answered, Chuck.
the president still has confidence in his national security advisor.
It's not for me to tell you what's in the president's mind. That's a question for the president.
Well,
it's a question
let me-
for our chief of staff. Asked and answered, Chuck.
Let me ask you this: if you were caught misleading the vice president of the United States, would that be considered a fireable offense in the Trump White House?
It's not for me to answer hypotheticals. It wouldn't be responsible. It's a sensitive matter. General Flynn has served his country admirably.
Governor Bush. Donald, you're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen. Leadership